So, if you look at global warming theories and models predict severe climate change. We just showed you that doesn't occur. Right? Hurricanes are no different, tornadoes are no different. Very high CO2 sensitivity. We debunked that when we went back and saw that you have 14.5-fold increase in CO2 and still go into an ice age. So that means that the climate, or that the globe does not have high CO2 sensitivity. The CO2 fingerprint in the troposphere is not there. Okay? That's wrong. Unprecedented and historic warming. Well, we've shown you that many, many times in the past, in the geologic history, the warming has been much higher than it is today. So there's no evidence of any of this occurring. So it doesn't matter how beautiful your theory is. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If your theory does not agree with the experiment, it's wrong. Okay? All the models in the world that predict all the global warming, when it comes time to test them, they fail. And they're wrong. This is what we have here. We have failed IPCC models. The UN set up these models, set up these committees to make these models, and they don't follow the facts. What about ice formation? Okay, we've all heard about this. Well, these are the polar bear populations. They're trying to tell you that the polar bear is going to extinct. And in fact, the U.S. Department of Interior has actually made the polar bear an extinct species, or an endangered species. But these are the actual polar bear numbers over time. From 1950 to 2005, they've increased 5-fold. Okay, these are the actual data. It will fly over the Earth and it will measure in the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, the amount of ice. These are months, okay, January through December. And you can see that in the summertime, there's a lot of ice. Wintertime, it melts and the ice goes down, goes back up, down, summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter. You see that over time. There's no change in the thickness. There is, of course, a seasonal variation, so that a guy from National Geographic will go out there, he'll go out there in August, and he'll look at the ice floe, it's all melted, and say global warming. Well, all he's got to do is go back out there in the wintertime, and the ice will have regained, right? The same thing happens in the South Pole. You can see the ice forms in the wintertime, melts in the sun, and vice versa. But over time, there's no change. You would expect with global warming that there would be a shift in the line. It doesn't occur. Well, here's a good one. You've probably heard this, right? The Arctic Ocean is warming up. Icebergs are growing scarcer, and in some places the seals are finding the water too hot. Reports all point to a radical change in climate conditions and hitherto unheard of temperatures in the Arctic zone. Expectations report that scarcely any ice has been met, with as far north as 81 degrees in 29 minutes. Great masses of ice have been replaced by moraines of earth and stones, while many points of well-known glaciers have entirely disappeared. This is something that I read something similar to in a posting about a year ago. But this was actually written by the U.S. Weather Bureau in 1922. So what we're seeing now is not unique. What happened in 1922 was part of this multi-decadal oscillator that we're talking about. In 1978, we entered a warm phase of a multi-decadal oscillator that started causing the temperature to warm up in the Arctic and this to occur. The same thing happened about the time of World War II, and in 1922 they found the same thing. What about sea ice? Okay, or sea levels. Talking, you've seen Elgar's movie, you know, the devastation from the floods. Well, this represents, let me take you back, this represents the end of the last ice age, okay, about 18,000 years ago. You can see the sea levels were very low, and now the sea level started to go up very, very quickly. It's called the Great Melt Pulse. And that's because the Earth started to warm. It started to warm, and all that ice, all those glaciers began to melt, and the sea level rose. And then you can see as we get closer and closer to time, we're right up here, and the rate of change of sea levels is tapered off. If you look at that rate, I drew a line. The rate turns out to be about 1 millimeter a year. If you look at the data a little bit closer, because it's very low resolution, with some newer data, we find out that the rate is about 2 millimeters a year of sea level rise, okay? So what is 2 millimeters a year? I found out that my Kroger card is about 1 millimeter, okay? So double this, and this is the rate of rise of the sea in 1 year. Are you worried about that? So the IPCC, the UN IPCC reports that the rate of rise is meters per year, and they're just simply wrong. The data's just not there to support it. It's all hype. Well, just to close here very quickly. If it's not anthropogenic greenhouse gases that are causing warming, then what is? We do have an explanation. We don't have to worry about this small amount of man-made CO2 to blame. There are, what I talked about earlier, was called a Pacific decadal oscillator. And what is that? The oceans in the northern Pacific warm and cool on a 30-year cycle. Every 30 years they warm up, and every 30 years they cool down. And what that does is that changes small amounts of cloud cover. And that small amounts of cloud cover cause changes in how the Earth heats. More cloud cover causes reflectivity, and that causes the Earth to cool. Less cloud cover causes more warming. And if you look at what is called the PDO cycle, which is what we can measure, it goes up and down. This is the period around World War II, which we know was warmer. And you can see the PDO cycle went hot. Then it went cold. Remember, anybody's been around in the 60s and 70s will tell you that it's a lot cooler in Richmond and a lot more snowier. And then now, about 1978, the PDO cycle switched to its warm phase. What happened? We started to warm up again. Well, this was the time that everybody went berserk. They started saying CO2 is causing global warming. My belief is that what is causing this is just the shift in the ocean currents. Okay? What is happening now? The recent measurements of the PDO cycle show it's cooling down. Is that probably explaining why, for the last 10 years, we haven't had any global warming? And my prediction is for the next 30 years, we're going to go into a cool spell. And you're going to see a lot more snow in Richmond. It's going to be a lot cooler. It's going to be a lot more similar to what you experienced in the 70s and 60s. There's other theories. The sun simply, as it gets hotter, correlations with orbital forcings that can definitely cause climate change. For example, there's eccentricity in the planets that have a 1,000-year cycle. Well, what has a 1,000-year cycle that I just talked about? Ice ages, right? So ice ages are in fact caused by how the Earth revolves around the sun. The science is settled. We've all heard about that. All scientists agree. As a scientist, this drives me nuts because the science is never settled, and all the scientists do not agree. This is a petition called the Oregon Petition that basically says that global warming is not caused by CO2 emissions. So far, we have 33,000 scientists that have signed it. So compare that to the 50 scientists that signed the last IPCC report. And some conclusions here. Human contribution to global warming is insignificant. Carbon dioxide is not a pollutant. It's essential for life. Carbon dioxide mitigation is pointless and economically destructive. The sun is the major driver of climate. Sea levels have risen for 18,000 years since the peak of the last ice age and will continue to rise slowly, irrespective of human activity. Generally warm periods are better for mankind. The models used by the IPCC cannot describe the recent warmings and therefore are worthless. And you hate to see this, but this is what's going on. We have climate scientists that are they're trying to make the CO2 hypothesis work. You've heard of ClimateGate? How many people have heard of ClimateGate? Okay. Well, there's the people at Hadley CRU in Great Britain, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration here, and NASA GISS. They compile the surface temperature data, and they put this out, and they've been manipulating their data to make it work. If I did that, I would be fired and thrown in jail. But they're getting by with it. So thank you for your attention. This is a subject that requires probably a lot more time. And if you're interested, I can point you to other material, or we can go over the details. Very good.
Thank you, Doctor. So basically it boils down to it's the sun.